pictures. I don't know if we'll get through all of them. We thought we'd start out with some of the cultural stuff in the Philippines, which might give you an idea better of why we do the things we do over there in ministry. Jonathan and I have been on a crash course of Filipino culture, but no matter how well you prepare, it's, you're going to learn as you go. And something else I'll say real fast before we start the pictures is that the Philippines is what you call an archipelago. Otherwise, it is a network of islands. You're talking over 7,000 islands, 2,000 or more which are occupied. And because they are islands, most of them are not connected via like a bridge or an easy way to get from one to the next. So one thing we discovered very quickly is that every island has its own culture. They even have their own dialect of the language. Things look different. People say different things. It's just different. And so when you say the Philippines, you might as well be talking about, in a way, like 2,000 different states. You know how every state in the United States is different? Well, every island in the Philippines is different. So, it's hard enough to keep track of 50-plus states. Imagine 2,000. All right. So I'm going to start out with the first two slides because they are near and dear to my heart. Do you know why, Jonathan?
I can only imagine.
Because it involves really cold temperatures.
Oh, yeah.
It was great. Loved it. Okay. I know you all woke up this morning and were just smiling like I was. I stood outside last night in the shorts and T-shirt and just let the snow fall on me. It was wonderful. Well, anyway, if you look at our first slide here, I'm sorry some of the pictures aren't great. Just my phone isn't the best. And I just wanted you to notice a couple of things. At the very bottom of this slide, it says right here, ground speed. Our plane was fast, 687 mile an hour. That's almost the speed of sound. And it was an Airbus A380-800, which is the largest passenger plane in the world. It can hold up to 853 people. The line to get onto this plane was epic. It was huge. We got to the airport 3 hours early and barely boarded on time. So if you go to the Philippines, show up way early. That's one piece of advice I have for you. All right. Oh, okay. And then notice that outside air temperature in our plane. Negative 80 degrees. We were flying near the North Pole at one point. And I asked if we could open a window. No, I really didn't. But because that might be seen as a terrorist threat. But in fact, in the Filipino airports, we noticed that there was a sign that said, don't even make jokes about bombs. We will arrest you. So decided not to talk about the windows. All right. All right, Jonathan, I'll let you talk about some fun food here.
Banana ketchup. Now, I obviously did not use this on my food, as you can tell. I was not a fan of, banana ketchup. In the U.S., we have tomato ketchup, but I've never heard of banana ketchup. But that's just one of the few weird foods that we've seen. That's not even bad compared to some other stuff. Oh, yeah. Actually, can I have somebody raise their hand and tell me what you think this is?
Luke.
Not Luke. He knows. That's boring.
Oh, Mariah.
Intestines. Yes. We went to one guy's house. He was a really, really nice guy. He was actually our guide for a few days. His name was Rochelle. And when we went to his house, we had rice, this boiled fish soup, and also, as you can guess it, chicken intestines. And we were with some other friends that we got to meet at the airport, traveling with the World Mission Builders Group is what they were called. We got to travel with a group of men. And they went to this place, which they called it Satan's Cafe. And it was even more bad than this. And it was still chicken intestines and pork intestines, but you never know if you'll see some remains still in the intestines or not. And sometimes it's raw. So, that was another really wild thing. Although this was better in comparison. This was at Rochelle's house.
Also, Jonathan, don't forget that this is intestines on a stick.
Yeah, intestines on a stick.
Yes. Also, there's chicken feet there if you weren't in the mood for intestines.
Oh, yeah,
that day.
chicken feet.
Yeah, I just ate rice. Okay. These, Jonathan, tell them about this.
Oh, yeah. So at night, this was actually their election season. So a lot of celebration was going on. There was a parade. You walked down. Everybody was actually really nice and stuff. And about every street corner, you'd see a whole hog or whole pig just cooked. So that's really neat because you don't see that every day in the U.S. And yeah, everybody was celebrating with a whole hog, just about.
The heads of the hogs were like trophies or decorations because they would tear apart the rest of the hog and eat it, and then they would just let the head sit there like, hey, how you doing? So
there you go.
Just you saw pig heads everywhere just for fun. All right, now this was near the very end of our trip, I'll be honest. But once you kind of get closer to the U.S. and you start seeing United States food again, you start getting really excited. I mean, Jonathan and I mean, when we ate our first American cheeseburger and we came back, it was a magical experience. It was awesome. Amazing. But this was on the menu of one of the so-called American restaurants. Nacho Supreme, nacho chips, tomato salsa, ground pork, cabbage, tomatoes, onions, cheese sauce, and mayonnaise on nachos.
And the guy actually said he liked mayonnaise on his tacos. I cannot agree with him, but
no. So anyway, it was semi-American. All right, now this is in the food section, I'm sorry to say. Jonathan, what do they do with dogs in the Philippines?
You could only guess what they do with dogs in the Philippines, and that is eat them.
Yep.
And actually, their rabbits are our dogs, you could say. So rabbits are their pets, and dogs are our pets, and we eat each other's pets, I guess. So that's just a fun fact as well. And dogs are, like, terribly mistreated over there. They're seen as pests. They just walk the street corners. Nobody can really feed them. So you just kind of see them everywhere and scrawny, and it's kind of terrible. It is not a dog paradise. I will just say that.
To be fair, we didn't see anybody abuse a dog, but they are completely neglected.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they are everywhere. Okay, so there is, in the Philippines, not a cultural thing you need to realize, something we didn't know until we got there, is that Manila is actually very Western, and half of Cebu is very Western. So if you're in one half of Cebu or Manila, it's almost like being in an American city. Everything's in English, and there's all kinds of, I mean, there's still Filipino culture mixed in, of course, but, it's very modern. And Jonathan and I got into this mall. This was towards the end of our trip, and we actually had a few free hours, first time in 2 weeks. And we walked in, and we saw this, and it said TGI Fridays, American Bar and Grill. We're like, oh, American food. Let's go get some American food. So we go in there, and it's like $30 for a cheeseburger.
Oh, it was ridiculous. Like, they ripped off a lot of white Americans.
Yeah, we were told, actually, before we went, that if you're white, they're going to try to take advantage of you. So we walked in, saw the prices, and walked out. So they didn't get us there. We went and got some more rice.
Yeah.
All right, Jonathan, tell them about Halo Halo.
Halo Halo. If you went about anywhere in the Philippines, I think everybody knew what Halo Halo was. That was one thing everybody commonly practically knew. It was like their, I guess you could say, their national dessert, you could say. And I actually didn't really know what it was like all made of, what it consisted of, but it was good. So I'll give it that. So
I can tell you what some of it is. So up top, you see normal chocolate ice cream, of course. And then you see the purple stuff there? That is purple yam ice cream.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And it's good. Mm-hmm. We liked it. In fact, the more we ate it, the more we wanted purple yam ice cream. Mm-hmm. We could adopt that in the United States. That'd be just fine. And then the rest of it's like fruit and crushed ice. But it's really good as a combination. All right, leche flan. Do you remember what this is?
Oh, that's right. Okay.
It's an egg-based dessert. No clue how they make it. It was recommended to us by one of our guides, Rochelle, one of the preachers. Rochelle was amazing. We loved Rochelle.
He was awesome.
And it's some kind of egg-based dessert, but it's really good. And it's like $1. Flan? Okay. Well, yeah. Well, they adopted a lot of things from Spanish culture, so yeah, it's very possible. Okay, so we went to a restaurant towards the end at a mall, and this is the Bible president's wife and his daughter, and we actually got to eat like some really good food at this restaurant. And to give you an idea, food in the Philippines in general is really cheap. There's a handful of places that'll rip off white people, But if the white people are willing to go with the Filipinos, then it's no problem. And
Yeah.
we ate like kings at this restaurant. I mean, fancy stuff. I mean, everything. It was awesome. It was towards the end of our trip. We finally got like a really good meal. And it was $30 to feed 6 people.
Yeah.
So cheap. So cheap. Oh, Jonathan loved this.
Oh, yeah. So this is the same airline in the Philippines that ripped me off and said that my tape measure was an endangerment to the flight. So TSA took my tape measure of all things, and I told them, well, let me know how much you get for it. Whatever they do with a tape measure, I don't know.
It's a Milwaukee one, too.
Yes, yeah, that was really disappointing, but that's besides the point. And on the flight as well, your snacks is this key and mango mix that's dried. And I don't know what kind of seasoning was on it, but I didn't really care much for it. Of course, my dad likes weird things, so he was munching down on it. But
I think I ate his, too.
yeah,
I was also really hungry, and I didn't really care what. I just recognized that it wasn't chicken intestines, so I was game.
yeah,
Yeah. So, and this flight too. The tickets for us to, and some islands are so remote or so difficult to get to. The only way you can get to them is like airplane or helicopter. So this one we can only get to by airplane, and our tickets to get there were $100. But you know where they get you? Luggage. It cost us $400 to get our luggage there. Yeah. We learned next time we're going to pack really light.
yeah. Well, and also that was with all the missionary stuff that we were given, and
Oh, yeah.
pass on to
We
the
were
next
carrying a
island.
lot of stuff for the mission, so that was, some of it was unavoidable. But yeah, they charge you like $5 a pound. One really cool thing over there, if you can find it, is they have these massive shrimp, and they are really good. So if you like shrimp, Philippines are really good.
There you go.
But it's hard to find them. Most of the places we were poor, and they didn't have access to anything other than rice and chicken intestines. So, but when you occasionally ran into something like this, you took advantage of it. Jonathan, do you remember this orange juice at that restaurant in Domageddon?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Tell them about it.
Well, I don't know if it was necessarily orange juice, but
It wasn't?
it was some kind of juice, and it was really good. It was a mixture of all types of things.
Okay, as far as I know, it was orange juice with like fruit in it, and it was the best. It was so
really
good. Yeah, I would have gladly gone back to being pre-diabetic for more of that. All right, tell them about cheese donuts.
I do not remember this.
You don't remember this?
No.
Okay, so over there's donut shops like everywhere for whatever reason, and you have to be careful when you're not a native because you just don't know what you're getting. It could be cheese donut, but really inside is rat. You just don't know.
Yeah.
So you have to ask your Filipino guide, is this safe? And a cheese donut is like cream cheese inside of a donut. It's not like American cheese, so it's probably pretty good. I wouldn't know because I can't eat it, but 7 pesos is about 14 cents. So you can, like on the way to a church I was preaching at, sometimes Jonathan and I were separated, which was a little worrying because occasionally he'd get on the back of one motorcycle, I'd get on the back of another, and we had no idea if we'd see each other again. But over time, we eventually found one another.
Yeah.
And one morning, I stopped by a donut shop with a Filipino guide, and I was able to buy donuts and coffee for 60 people for about $7. They were really excited. Also, why in the world you drink hot drinks in the Philippines is beyond me.
Yeah.
It is so hot. All right, Jonathan, do you remember this story, or should I tell this story about the coconuts 30 feet in the air?
Oh, you go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're at a church in Cantinhing, and I innocently asked, hey, do you guys eat the coconuts up in the tree? This is very early on in the trip before I knew anything. And this preacher then whistled, and this little boy came over, 8 or 9 years old. He spoke something in Filipino, and then that little boy scuttled about 30 feet in the air to get us coconuts.
Yeah.
Scared me out of my mind. I was like, it's okay, you don't have to. And there it goes. And you have to understand, right below this palm tree was a bunch of rocks, like big, jagged rocks. So he got 2 coconuts for us, and he scuttled right back down and went back to what he was doing. And then you'll see here in a second, they got a rusty knife and opened it up for us, so that was nice. And but anyway, I asked one of the preachers, I said, do the kids ever fall out of the trees? And they're like, yeah, and then they have back problems. I'm like, you think?
Yeah.
You learn very quickly in the Philippines, safety is not something they think about. They just don't. And,
No.
and it's largely because to them, safety is a luxury. But anyway, we ate some fresh coconuts out of a tree, and if you like coconut, it was good.
Yeah.
All right. Now, there was one hotel we stayed at. We didn't get to stay at a hotel, but when we did, there was occasionally a restaurant attached to the hotel. And this was awesome. I mean, there was eggs and sausage and fruit and more meat and more vegetables. And oh, my goodness. I just had to tell you about this one amazing breakfast I had. It was great.
Well,
and it was like $4.
It was an all Christian motel too.
Oh,
in
yeah, that's
Dumageddon.
right. Yeah.
The owner was Christian, and they actually held church services there
Yeah.
on Sunday morning as well. So that was really neat.
The mall had church services too.
Yeah.
Who knew? Yeah, American culture could learn from them a little bit. Okay, one thing you'll learn about the Philippines is that fruit grows everywhere. If there's no other food, there's fruit. There's bananas, coconuts, lasones, mangoes. They grow everywhere. So if you like fruit, boy, you'll like the Philippines. And these bananas were awesome. I think I ate 6 at once and almost got sick.
Yeah.
Oh, they were so good. This was one of our guides, Rochelle. He was amazing. What you see behind him is his house. He has one of the nicest houses that we saw over there. It would be a rundown house here in Callio, kind of, but for them it was great. And he was so excited because he was able to get us cold spaghetti. Now, he didn't know I was gluten-free, so I couldn't eat it. But Jonathan ate it. And I said, Jonathan, what does it taste like? And he said, it tastes like cold spaghetti.
It was good.
Yeah.
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 I mean, yeah.
So,
well, and before Rochelle, before he got this house, and this is actually not his house. A lady from the church.
right.
She was a little bit more wealthy in the area, and she donated the church building, the basketball court, and this house, and they got to live in it. And before, him and his family, I don't know how many was in his family at the time, was practically living in tarps, they said. So,
underneath tarps.
Yeah. So this was an upgrade for
We
him.
saw a lot of tarps and just metal shacks and thatch huts. And the poor people in America are middle class over there.
Yeah.
And what's poor over there, we can't even imagine. These are lasones. These are little bitty fruits, and they are kind of like grapes with like big inedible seeds in the middle. But they were good, and they were like a penny a piece, or not even that. You probably get like 10 of them for a penny. And then when you eat fish in the Philippines, they have the eyeballs and everything still attached. This was fish soup. If anybody in the Philippines offers you fish soup, just ask for rice. This stuff is terrible. It is awful.
It's actually not too bad, but if you don't know how to eat fish soup, then it can be bad for you. And what in the world did you eat? It was a part of the fish that
they
you
left the
shouldn't-
intestine in it, and I didn't know that.
Yeah, he
And it was
decided to
awful.
bite into the intestine, and of course that wouldn't taste very good. So
I tasted that for days after that. Oh, it was awful. And then, of course, rice. So we went to a restaurant one morning, and when you understand, when we say restaurant in the Philippines, you mean like a place that might have one thing of food, okay? And so we go there, and we can't understand anything on the menu. And by this point in time, I'm skeptical of ordering random things off the menu. And so they only had 2 options on the menu I understood, rice and garlic rice. And then you could get it in single serving or platter. So I thought, well, I want more than single serving, so I'll get a platter. I want you to imagine a shoebox of rice. This was a huge amount of rice.
Yeah.
But I hadn't eaten in 12 hours, so I ate it all. I was like 90% rice by the end of this trip. Oh, this was one of Jonathan's favorite meals. Do you remember pork sisig?
Yeah, it was called pork sisig, and we were at a bus stop. We were actually leaving the local church camp that we were just at. And anyway, they had their trays laid out and stuff like that. And Rochelle suggested pork sisig.
He was really excited.
Yeah, he was super excited, but I don't think anybody in their right mind here would be too excited about it. It was pork skin with the hair still on it and stuff like that. And it was not my favorite thing. I still ate it, but it was not my favorite
Yeah, I
thing.
think we had been on, I don't know, we had been traveling forever, and you get desperate. And he was really excited, so, we ate it.
We told him it was wonderful.
It was way better than pork intestine.
Yeah.
And then on the side of the road, everywhere are these food stands. And this guy was serving mango juice and fried bananas. And we had been in a van for like 4 or 5 hours. The air conditioner had quit. and this was a Filipino-sized van. To give you an idea how small this van was, you couldn't even point your toes forward. You had to twist your legs to fit in this van. And I don't know, did you have that experience, or was that just me?
I mean, I'm Filipino size. So.
Yeah, that helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he fit right in. I was like Shrek over there. I was huge. I never felt so large in my life.
I felt at home just a little bit. So.
Yeah, he fit everything. But anyway, we all of us were getting sick in this van, so we piled out of it, and the only thing we could find to drink was this. And this was a dangerous idea because you don't know if what somebody is serving is tap water or bottled water. If that came from tap water, that could have made us very ill. But we took a chance because we were so desperate, and thankfully nobody got sick. You pointed this out first.
Oh man, one of the first things I noticed when we flew into the Philippines, it was dark out, but there was no way that you were not going to see this thing. Of course, this was light when we saw this one, but all of the power lines and everything over there were just a tangled mess. They just threw them and strung them across, and there would be brownouts occasionally, and you couldn't go out in the rain because rainwater would get on it and crack and pop, and it was crazy.
It was
really
downright
crazy.
dangerous to be outside in the rain.
Yeah.
And if you notice carefully, there's not just wires everywhere. There's wires hanging down. There's wires that are starting to fray. The insulation's coming off. It is scary. And everybody's just like, oh, every time we pointed out something like this in the Philippines, all of our guides would say the same things. It's just more fun in the Philippines.
Yeah.
All right. Now, if you can see this picture, Jonathan, you noticed this staring out one of our hotel rooms.
Yeah, we were in Cebu City at the time and staying in the motel, and yeah, we were just high enough you could see a lot of the poverty just around and just how things were falling in and everything else. It was really bad. Really, really bad.
And yet there were businesses in there, people living in there.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 seasons in the Philippines. There's wet and dry. In the wet season, you are wet. You might sleep in water. You just stand in water. Your house might be full of water. The upside of the wet season is there's more food, but there's also more mosquitoes and, of course, water. And then in the dry season, there's not as much food, but you're also not sleeping in water. So pick your poison.
Mm-hmm.
Santander.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan, tell us about this. Was our first mission stop.
Yep. We after we flew in, we got about maybe 4 hours of sleep at the motel.
One.
Then
it was one.
It was one. Okay.
1 hour.
Yeah, that was kind of generous. Anyway, we were driving down on this bus, and we were just kind of like driving through the jungle. It was about a 4-hour trip, and in the U.S., it would have probably taken a half an hour to really drive. But the road was pretty bad and
Dirt
everything
sometimes.
else. Yeah.
If even a road.
And Santander was our first stop. This was the church camp that I mentioned earlier. And the World Mission Builders, which is a group that usually travels around to different countries to help church organizations, build facilities. And they've been working at the specific campsite to build concrete structures. And concrete structures was really common over there in the Philippines, just in case of storms or hurricanes or whatever else. Typhoons, whatever else comes down. So this was their church camp, and we have a luxurious church camp in comparison over in Clarence.
Yeah. So give you an idea, this church camp is on 3/4 of an acre, so very small. It's in the middle of the jungle. They do have electricity, kind of. That's it. I'm not sure if you would call what they have plumbing. That was our first experience with a Filipino bathroom, which give you an idea what a Filipino bathroom is. Imagine a Western bathroom, but now take away the seat, take away the tank, take away toilet paper, take away soap, take away towels, take away water.
But we did meet the toilet master.
We did meet the toilet master.
Yeah.
Okay, this was bizarre. There was a relatively young man on our trip named Owen, and he is one of the world's foremost experts on toilets internationally. And he goes around and fixes toilets. People send him on missions to fix toilets all over the world. And we got to meet this guy. And he's a little bit as strange as you might think he is. And he was able to fix all the toilets here and everywhere else he went. And he didn't hardly pack any clothes or anything. His suitcases were just full of toilet parts.
Yeah.
And It was bizarre.
Well, and you hear car guys, like, oh, that's a Ford Focus or that's a Ford F-150. That's a Mansfield Super Flush 360. I mean, he
From
can name a toilet.
1968,
Yeah,
month February.
I mean, he could just name about any toilet. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he actually has a YouTube channel called OCC Restoration and Plumbing. Everywhere he goes, he takes pictures of the toilets, and if they don't work, he fixes them and then just moves on.
That's what he did here in Santander, so
Yeah.
that was a huge blessing for them.
Yeah, even though his idea of a fixed toilet was still not my idea of a toilet that I'd want to use.
Yeah.
This is a church camp. And to give you an idea, there's just 3 concrete buildings, all open air. The kids, the people, the adults, everybody just sleeps on the concrete with a rug. That's what they do. And they eat rice. And one time I was told a story. Now, we weren't here to see this, but based on what I saw, I believe it. The church camp ran out of food. And it's not due to a lack of money. Sometimes there's just no food. And so they all got in a big circle, kids and adults and everything, and prayed. They said, God, please send us an animal, anything, so we can eat. And about 10 minutes later, a 10-foot python came into the camp. The men are all trained snake hunters. So they just went after the snake, killed it, grilled it, and they had food for the next 2 days. And they considered a 10-foot python an answer from God.
Yeah, that was super cool.
If that would have happened in the U.S., everybody would have ran screaming. Every parent from 6 hours away would have came and picked up their kids, and there would have been lawsuits for emotional distress. In the Philippines, it's an answer to prayer.
Mm-hmm.
You spend 2 weeks in the Philippines, and let me tell you something. Everybody I know, including me, is wealthy beyond reason.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, there's gates, there's metal, there's concrete, there's barbed wire, there's spikes, because the main thing you got to worry about is theft. There's so much poverty that, believe it or not, there's not a lot of violence. There's not a lot of drugs or prostitution or anything. It's mainly just theft, and so everybody's trying to protect what little they have.
Mm-hmm.
This was a cathedral, I think, in one of the last cities we were in. And so it goes to show you that some of the places, there'll be extreme opulence and wealth right next to absolute poverty. This was the Cabo Open Air Market, and this is kind of a fuzzy picture. But this guy by himself had this mega dolly, and he was moving all this wood furniture all by himself. And these guys were everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you didn't get in their way.
No. We should get ran over. This is a picture of the jungle where, I just wanted you all to see that we were so far away that you couldn't see anything anywhere else. Boy, did we have some adventures in vehicles. Oh. So this was one of the nicer vehicles we rode in because the seats actually had pads, but it looked like you were walking into like a prison bus. And some of their vehicles are like older vehicles from the U.S., and the exhaust has been removed, and so they're super loud, and they smell, and, you can almost see where the change used to be. But, it was transportation. Okay, jeepneys. This was not something we actually rode in, but we saw them everywhere. Imagine like a minivan with 25 people in it. That's what this was. And then these were tricycles, which is, if you look to the left, there's a motorcycle, and then there's like 8 people in a metal cab attached to it with a single wheel. We saw, and this was one of the more civilized ones, we saw ones where 8 or 9 people were hanging on them from every direction. And it was wild. Yeah. This is us inside of a tricycle, which you can tell it's just a motorcycle with a shell on top of it. And they like to decorate their tricycles. That was kind of fascinating. Another tricycle. They're everywhere. And they're really cheap. You can get anywhere you want in town for a couple bucks. Yeah. Motorcycles. This was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. If you like to ride a motorcycle, this is not American motorcycle riding. This is a swarm of bats going 50 mile an hour down a road not meant for a dog to walk on.
Yeah.
And when you get on the back of one of these things in the middle of that traffic, you are certain that this is the day you're going to die. It was terrifying. And the first time we got on one, Jonathan got a helmet and I didn't. Yeah. And oh my goodness. After about 2 weeks of doing this, though, you just start to accept your fate. I'm either going to make it or I'm not. What difference does it make,
Right.
And then this vehicle was weird. We rode in this like 1980s Isuzu, looked like an old war truck or something. Jonathan was in the back like a piece of cargo, and I was sitting up front, and this was the only visible line in the windshield. I don't know why. Accidents happen regularly, as you can imagine, because the traffic is unbelievable, and there's no rules. Everybody just goes wherever they can go. And so this was an accident that happened. This is the Cebu Bible Seminary. This place was awesome. And if you look closely to the upper left-hand side, it says a Restoration Movement Bible College, loyalty to Christ. They are unapologetically who they are, and that was really cool. Jonathan was the youngest person to ever speak at the seminary, so that was a cool honor. This is Rochelle showing us his dorm room. Okay, Jonathan, quickly tell them about the game that you taught the Filipinos.
So this board game was actually made through the Kayamichi Christian Mission down in Oklahoma, where we had the preaching contest, and this is called the Follow Me board game. And the idea of it is you can really barely see it here, but you might see like continents in the background, but the board game is supposed to represent the world, and the main goal of the game is trying to use the talents that God gives us to get people from the world into the center, into the church. And that was a really cool board game to represent to the Filipinos and Filipinas to let them understand the message that we were trying to get across to them. And they really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's a really good game, and they loved it, and I think it's going to have an impact. This was a dorm room inside of the Cebu Bible Seminary. Okay, so there were 7 guys in this, or 5 guys in this room, and it was no bigger than an American bedroom, and it was clean, and it smelled good. That blew my mind, because you get 5 American boys in a room, they haven't even done anything yet, and it stinks. This one had 7 in their dorm room, and again, clean, and it was hot, and somehow yet smelled fine. And these Bible college students there, they work. They day labor, and then they study, and then they do it again. I love this shirt I saw over there. This was one of the themes of one of their conferences. Every church have a baby. I thought, what if America churches had that mentality? Every church have a baby. Jonathan and I were just talking about church planting last night. We just need to duplicate like 6 of him, and then we can do it. So just let me know if you come up with the technology. But I love that slogan. I'm going to adopt that somehow, some way. Jonathan, he got to preach at a church in Domageddon. Actually, he preached at many places, and as did I. But this was Domageddon. This was an open-air church. Almost all the churches over there are open-air. They can't afford air conditioning. And so you're outside with a roof on top of you and some decorations, and it's pretty, and really hot, really humid. And also something else about preaching over there is that because it's open air and it's so compact, the population is so great that it wasn't uncommon at all that there would be a wild chicken outside crowing, a goat baaing, and just endless traffic noise. And so everything over there is turned up to 100. The volume on everything is so loud. But that's the only way you can compete with the rest of the noise. And so Jonathan and I always felt like we were shouting at people, but they thought it was normal. This lady was amazing. If you remember her, she's the one that started VBSs all over, what is it, Negros, the island of Negros. Yeah, she's helped start several churches and did VBSs all over Negros, and she was amazing to talk to. We're learning from her.
Yeah, Negros was probably the island that had the most churches of Christ, Christian churches there. I think there was over 100 churches just on that little island alone, and they really had a really good mission going over there. They were really strong.
Yeah, and they're really excellent church planners. Like we're learning from them.
Yeah,
they know what they're doing. Yeah, this is a goat that was competing with me for the microphone. Like he was like 5 feet from me, going bah bah, and I was like trying to They worship enthusiastically. These people, even though it looks like, they got kind of a nice thing going on here, most of these people, like, they sacrifice to be at church. Like, they don't make enough money during the week to do anything other than day labor but to survive. And so for them to come to church and then to praise God so enthusiastically and be so grateful for what little they have, man, we just don't know.
Right.
This was This was the island of Negros again, and this was a group of preachers. How it worked is they would get all the preachers together at seminars, and then we would have anywhere from 4 to 8 hours to teach them about preaching clubs and the game. And so we probably got to talk to over 100 preachers.
Yeah, we did.
And hundreds of churches in terms of representatives. So really cool. How's that for a church pew?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'd rather just stand, wouldn't you? Yeah. Again, whatever you're sitting on right now is ultra luxury. Okay, so one thing I noticed very quickly is that small children love to come up to me and stare. And I was trying to figure out why. Well, I finally figured out why. Because most of them had never seen a fat person before. And they were very respectful, but and they wouldn't touch me, but they would point. And one little boy finally came up to me and said, "How?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, quite frankly, because I'm a spoiled, white American who eats too much." And he's like, "How?"
Yeah.
Because the truth is, they don't know what the concept of eating too much is. They never have too much. Okay, so sports jerseys are a big thing over there because they're cool, they're colorful, they just fit the culture. And so Jonathan, Lane, and Luke all got sports jerseys, which was a really cool thing. I think they gave me like a sheet or something. I don't remember because I wouldn't fit in anything they had. So they were like, "Here's a sheet. Do you fit in it?" "Sure, thanks." All right. So that was cool. And then this is just a vision, mission, and goal statement, church statement of the church, just unapologetically Christian restoration movement, really cool. Jonathan was a big hit, you can imagine, with all the young ladies. I won't embarrass him. I'm just going to say that a lot of them told me they had never seen a blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy before. And so they were all into him. I think he has like 5,000. He has like a fan club now. Another church, restoration movement, Balik Sa Kamaturan, which means restoration movement, embrace the reality of God, is what that says. Murals, beautiful murals. Some of these churches we would go to, some of them had musical equipment, some didn't, and then some of these would have just these beautiful murals. Jonathan preaching here, this time to kids. This was another church, really pretty church. I think was this our first seminar?
Yeah.
I think this was our first seminar.
The only church that had air conditioning.
Yeah, this one had air conditioning. Everywhere I went, I'd be like, "Do you have any air conditioning?" "No." "Okay." But I always asked. But yeah, this place was great. And let me tell you something about teaching them about preacher boys and things like that. I think in a few years, they're going to be teaching us how to do preacher boys. These people approach everything with 150% effort. They have such enthusiasm, such gratitude. These people know how to plant churches.
Yeah.
We're learning from them.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you. Like, we were sent over there to teach them, but really we're learning from them.
Yeah.
Another open air church this one had a basketball court and a volleyball court, so that was that lady who donated all that. And by the way, it was oceanside property. Like in the U.S., this would be worth millions. And over there, you can buy oceanside property, several acres, for about $100,000. Jonathan got a certificate of appreciation for preaching. Oh, there's that goat again. That goat was, this was funny. So in one of the motels we stayed at, the marble wall, okay, really nice marble wall, but they needed to install a elevator switch for the elevator to work. So they just cut out part of the marble wall, screwed a piece of driftwood to it, and called it good.
Mm-hmm.
That's Filipino engineering for you. Okay, there was a mall we went to towards the end of our trip on the western side of Cebu. And imagine the prettiest, nicest 4-story mall you've ever seen back in the 1990s. That's what this was like. It was unbelievable. So it goes to show you there's a tremendous amount of wealth in certain parts of the Philippines, but right across the bridge, you're back to extreme poverty. And then we have, there you go, Jepson Lumber in the middle of the Philippines. Not really, but, do it best. And then there was a story called Onesimus, which I thought was great because that's a character in the Bible. Man, look at these sunsets. You've never seen sunsets like that. That's beautiful. And they were all the time everywhere. What they lack in stuff, they make up for in beauty. Yeah. And the people are the best part of the Philippines. They are gorgeous. It's all right. All right, Jonathan, I know you got to go, so tell people real quick about anything you want to share with them about the trip or ministry or whatever we did.
Well, I mean, just going on the trip and just meeting these people, talking with these people, and like Dad said earlier, we didn't have only something to teach them, but they had something to teach us. And it was just really neat just seeing how they kind of worked with that one lady with the VBSs and stuff. She had wonderful ideas about that. Instead of just being right in the building, they would go out to different communities and multiple different areas in a community and do the VBS right there. And they had other kinds of strategies and stuff like that. And it was really, really neat. And once again, a lot of these churches were solid and appreciative in the restoration movement sign. I mean, they were prideful of that. And a lot of us around here, or at least our churches anymore, they are starting to really kind of stray away from that just a little bit. So just to be refreshed with how strong their faith is, how strong their roots are, and just how kind of a people they are and responsive and everything else, it was just awesome. Super, super awesome.
Yeah, even random people on the street are nice. Beggars are nice. Everybody's nice.
Oh, yeah, everybody's nice. And I actually remember, like, at one of the churches, there was a, I guess you didn't include the picture, but there was a paper that was from the Philippine
Department of Education.
Department of Education. And on the top line, it said, "Greetings in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ." That was super, super cool. They pray in their school still. They are prideful about that. And it's just amazing. And actually, the Philippines, they consider themselves a Christian nation. Where's that at around here, you know? So just the fact to be refreshed by how good they're doing over there is just wonderful. And it just gives us hope here in America just to see that we can do the same.
And it's an evangelist paradise over there. You can talk to the cab driver about the Lord. You can talk to the beggar about the Lord. You can talk to anybody. Everybody wants to talk about the Lord, even people who know nothing. We met idol worshipers who wanted to know more about Jesus. I mean, it was something else. So we didn't just go over there to talk about Preacher Boys. We were able to do evangelism and discipleship and mentoring, and it was a wild 2 weeks that we slept little, ate poorly, and did the Lord's work.
And I remember actually few years ago, I remember talking to a crowd over here. I don't remember where, but anyway, I talked to them about Preacher Boys, kind of the same thing like we did over in the Philippines. None of them asked me questions. None of them cared to know what we were doing with the preaching program and stuff like that. But I think every place we went, every church we went, every minister we talked to was interested to see what in the world that we were doing here with the Preacher Boys. So Dad's statement that they might exceed us in that preaching program here in a couple of years, I think can be true.
Yeah.
And the fact that they are that responsive and attentive and want to know more is it's just fulfilling.
They are on fire for God.
They are on fire for God. Man, it was super, super awesome.
Yeah, I just can't emphasize that enough. So thank you for sending us. It was awesome. Anybody have any questions for Jonathan before he takes off? And then I'll have a few last things. Go ahead, Connie.
Kind of a mix.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, what you come back with is their energy, because with so little, they do so much.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we have so much, and by comparison, we do so little.
Right. I think comfort here in America is our greatest foe, because you can see what comfort can do to us, but since they don't have it, they're just on fire. Nothing's stopping them.
And they don't have any trust in their government whatsoever. And what's funny is their government's more moral than ours.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't care. Like, it was election season, and people were participating in the parades because you might get like a free mango or something.
Yeah.
But nobody cared about the election because they don't believe that their vote makes any difference. Over here, we think our vote makes a difference, and look what we get. And so it's mind-blowing that their country is so, it's about as close to a Christian nation as you could imagine.
Yeah.
And yet, they have freedom of religion, because we could go do our thing. There was a lot of Catholic influence, not a lot of other influence, but those two.
Yeah. So there's a lot of they like to go by the phrase Church of Christ, and there's a lot of churches of Christ just like us over there. So that was super
And there
neat.
was this one guy named Elmer, funny enough, and
yeah.
he was adamant that all churches should be called Church of Christ. I like that name. I honestly prefer that name, but I don't mandate it or anything, okay? But he did. He was like, churches should only be called Church of Christ. And then Jonathan started talking about how he preached at the Elmer Christian Church.
And all the guys were teasing him about that.
Oh yeah,
like,
it was
awesome.
great. So we just started calling him that. His name was now Elmer Christian Church.
Yeah,
so
Elmer Christian.
that's what
Church.
you get for all that. So he took it in good humor, and so did we. But it was fun. It was fun. Other questions, especially for Jonathan, because he's got to take off. Then I'll tell you a few more things, then we'll close. All right, Jonathan, take off. I know you're already 15 minutes late. He's got to run to Clarence. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, you certainly, kind of like you guys when you went to Israel, you can't sum everything up in an hour. You can't do it. But I'll just tell you last couple of things here. When we went over there to talk about Preacher Boys, they have a very interesting culture in the way that men and women deal with things in their daily lives. It's patriarchal in the sense that the men are in charge. But what's so interesting is that when it comes to money, the women are always in charge over there. It doesn't matter if you're talking about business, family, church, anything. The women handle the money. The men make the decisions, but the women handle the money. And this comes from their culture in times past when it was common for men to get sucked up into the gambling and cockfighting and drinking culture and become useless. And so there was some governmental reforms where to get that under control, even though the men made decisions, the women would handle the money. And then now, just about 30 years later after those reforms, the men are a lot more useful, let's just say. And so they were really excited about Preacher Boys because it's another way they can keep their boys away from that stuff and into something productive and good. So that was another reason why it was so receptive. Oh, Luke, it's when they have chickens fight each other. It's very brutal. It's very looked down on over there. Like it's something that you don't do unless you're like bad. Marcia. It depended greatly on where we were. Because of the archipelago nature of the Philippines, islands everywhere, there were some places that spoke pretty good English, and then as we got further away from Cebu and Manila, it became more broken. We went to an island called Occidental, and that island, almost nobody spoke any English at all. And some of these churches we couldn't even get to because you can only get to them via helicopter or horse. That's how far away some of these places are and how remote some of these people live. And so in those places, we would have a translator. But there was two words that we found everybody knew no matter where we went. And that was mayong, which meant good, and also everybody knew the word no. And that turned out to be really useful because I could be presented with chicken intestines and say, no mayong, and they all knew what that meant. Or they could present me with something else, and I could say mayong, which means good, so they knew I wanted it. So that became very useful. I don't think I'll ever forget mayong. But also the language barrier is not just between us and them, it's between the islands. Some of the words will mean one thing in one island and another thing in another. For example, the word Santanan means everyone, but Santanas means you devils. And it varied based on where you were. So we had to ask everywhere all the time, how do we say this? What do we say there? Because it's very easy to say Mayong Buntong Santanas, which means good morning, you evil people. You don't want to say that. So, whew. All right. Other questions? Well, I think that, like Jonathan said, they're going to be teaching us how to do Preacher Boys, and we're still in contact with them. We're learning from them. They want us to come back. We hope to go back. This time I want to take other people with us. Jonathan and I, there's two reasons I took Jonathan and not Kara, and I know that I wish I could have took her the first time too, but I knew it was going to be really, really primitive and really, really rough, and it was. And so I knew Jonathan and I could just, men, when separated from their women, just become feral cats. So I knew we would be fine no matter where we were or what we had to do. And secondly, because 2 of the days I was there, I was really sick, and I didn't know why. And so he was able to cover for me. But, man, I was ill. At one point in time, I was just plastered on the floor of an airport, and they were going to have to scrape me up with a giant spatula. But thankfully, and there was no way to get anywhere near a hospital or a medical clinic or anything. And over there, healthcare, okay, give you an idea. The Filipino government will tell you that they have universal health care. What that means is if you break your leg, they'll give you a crutch and say good luck. And we met tons of people with shriveled limbs, twisted limbs, missing limbs, and yet they were still day laboring. There's no social safety net. There's no disability. You work till you're dead, and you work with whatever you got. And so if you actually want to have anything actually fixed, you have to travel and you have to pay for it. And there was this one situation where a lady came up to me for her friend. The lady herself wouldn't ask for anything. That's something else that's amazing over there. As poor as these people are and as wealthy as they know you are, they didn't ask us for anything. We had to peel it out of them to help meet their needs. And this lady had her son had gotten hurt on the way to work in a traffic accident. And she told the hospital, go ahead and fix him up, do the surgery and have him recover in the hospital, and I'll pay you. And she didn't actually have the money, but she did that so her son could get better. But over there, if you have a hospital bill and you don't pay it, you go to prison until you die. Or you pay the bill, which you're not going to be able to pay the bill in prison. So you see the catch-22 there. So she was preparing to go to prison at the end of the week, and she wasn't willing to ask for money to get out of it. She was 80 years old. So her friend came up to me and asked if I could help. And I said, well, how much is it? The total bill for surgery and 5 days in the hospital recovery was $65. Yeah. So, of course, we met that need. Yeah. But to them, that's over a month's worth of money. They make about $2 a day. Now, again, you get on the government website, they'll say, oh, we have Social Security and everybody makes $10 an hour. That's only true if you're on the western side of Cebu or Manila. The rest of the islands, it's laissez-faire. Other questions, comments? As we say in Daytimers, rabbit trails. All right. Well, again, thank you for sending us. It was a life-changing experience. We hope to go back and take other people with us, including Luke and Kara and Lane and others. And I'll end with this. Everybody needs to go on a mission trip. I wish I would have done it much younger. I wish I would have had this experience at Jonathan's age, because it's so easy to get so petty over here, and including me. And after going to a place like that and seeing how those people live and seeing how grateful they are and how much they praise God and how they thank God for 10-foot pythons, I don't have any reason to ever complain again. And by the way, NYR is paradise in comparison to the Philippines. So I don't need a golf cart at NYR. I just need a cane. So thank you, Candy, for lending me your cane. The roads, the sidewalks, everything's really rough over there, so I'd recommend a cane for anyone. But yeah, NYR is paradise because the porta potties get cleaned every day and they have toilet seats. That's a luxury over there. I actually asked one of the missionaries, could I buy them a toilet seat? And they said, don't bother. They'll just sell it for food, so just buy them food. If it's not an absolute necessity, they don't buy it. What we think are necessities are really wants. That's just the truth. All right, I think we'll close out there because it's 5 till. We want people to come in and get ready for worship. So thank you again.